Colleagues, could I request that we settle down for the next session? And may I request Dr. Dawit Mulatu, who's going to be the moderator, to come forward. Dr. Dawit. Okay, so I'll let you now take this forward. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hope you had a good lunch, and moderating something after lunch is a bit heavy because some energies will go to somewhere else, and I think we should do a balance from all directions. So thank you very much, Dr. Philip, for giving me this chance to moderate this session. And we will have 3 countries' experience sharing related to data, analytics, and also the prioritization of investment in landscape restoration. At the same time, also how we can inform decision makers by providing certain information that are enhancing their decision. So this session is constituted of 3 presentations, experience from Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Nepal. Based on the arrangement of the presentation, I will call upon Professor Yusuf Muranga, is a Director General for the National Institute of Statistics in Rwanda. So he will share us on the topic on integrating NCA into system of national account. Professor Yusuf is more than 15 years of experience in statistics and development, and also he has done quite a good job on a scope of statistics, including labor, education, and economics, and price and agriculture. And his vision is focusing on the development of the capacity related to NCA and statistics development in the country. And also he is leading the application of modernizing the national civil registration vital service statistics in the country. So Professor Yusuf, welcome to the floor. Then after this presentation, Dr. Shoak Anaitamfusu, he is a senior environmental specialist and also a land management expert. He has ample experience, and he is a senior person in our bank portfolio related to land resource management. And he is a skilled and sustainable land management practice, and his research is more focused on land use, tenure, cadastre system in the country. He will present together with Mr. Afwork. He is a senior GIS person from the Ministry of Agriculture, and he has ample experience dealing with statistics and, GIS and remote sensing, and he's a bit passionate on watershed management that are operated in the bank program for the rural landscape and livelihood program, and the climate action landscape management program as well. So Mr. Afwork and Dr. Shawa, please to the floor. And they will share the Ethiopian experience. And the third one is Dr. Sumoya. Sorry for my pronunciation. Our mother language is a bit different. She examines research related to poverty, nutrition, food production, livelihood, and that is linked with the land, energy, and ecosystem, particularly for the poorest population, which disproportionately marginated from the benefit of ecosystem service and also highly affected by climate change. His research output is benefiting more bilateral and multilateral institute, and she's also an associate editor for the known journals of agricultural economics and water resource economics. And her work is She has works with multinational and multi-ethnic and then multidisciplinary research work. And then she is also a senior economist at the World Bank. Dr. Sumaya, the floor is to you. So thank you. These are our presenters. So as a way of my introduction, Professor Yusuf will present for us how can we integrate NCA work into our system of national account. And then as a moderator, they gave me only 10 minutes for all of us, including myself. So keep your time, and then the floor is to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Dawit. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Do you have the energy? Yeah, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I would want to, first of all, thank the World Bank for the work and championing of natural capital accounting. It's very promising. We've seen a lot of momentum being built over the last couple of years, thanks to the efforts that we are seeing in the World Bank. I will talk about our experience in compiling natural capital accounting, but also integrating natural capital accounts into the system of national accounts. It's a long journey that we started some time back. And with that journey, we've learned a lot, but we've also got some achievements. And also, I'll be talking about the process of organization that we've put in place and where we have focused. First of all, natural capital is, on one hand, is a straightforward concept. On another hand, it's a little bit more complex concept. When we look at it from the statistics perspective, we see that we have resources, natural capital resources that are more or less straightforward, that we all see and we appreciate directly. For example, minerals, for example, energy resources, for example, productive land, and so on and so forth. But even with that, measuring these resources can be quite complex and challenging in the real world when we are trying to do this work. But also, we have another group of resources that are very important, that many people, most of us, normally take for granted. In fact, sometimes we don't look at them immediately as resources, especially ecosystem services, for example, such as habitats for wildlife, air and water filtration systems, flood protection mechanisms, and so on and so forth. We normally don't give market value to these resources until we lose them. For example, if something happens and there is flooding, then we realize that we had something that we don't have anymore, and therefore we try to put in place efforts to try to see what we lost. But natural capital accounting allows us to put value on these very important resources so that with the value, then we can make good decisions about managing those resources and even investing in the resources. In Rwanda, we committed to natural capital accounting in 2012, following Rwanda's signature on the Gaborone Declaration. Immediately, we joined the WAVES program with the World Bank. We got a lot of support. We got a lot of technical support in that program. And ever since we embarked on the journey of producing natural capital accounts, but also expanding, leading to integrating into the systems of national accounts. And we joined because we wanted to draw attention to very important natural resource sectors in the country. Yeah, we joined the efforts of computing natural capital accounts because we wanted to draw attention to economically important natural resource sectors in the country by providing reliable data to support the decisions that need to be made and the trade-offs that could happen, especially for our policymakers. The process regarding the process that we used, I've seen other countries have also applied a similar mechanism. We had two forums that allowed us to make progress with this work. We had a forum still operating that we called a steering committee. The steering committee was supposed to help us to have political guidance on what we need to do in terms of prioritizing the accounts that we need to prioritize, and also create political ownership and direction to the process. And this forum included almost all institutions that are key to this work, starting with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, the Ministry of Environment, the National Institute of Statistics, the National Environment Agency, and other institutions, the Rwanda Water Board, the Rwanda Land Management Agency, and so on and so forth. But also we have a technical committee that supports the technical work of the steering committee. That supports the technical work of the steering committee. And with that, we came up with 4 priority sectors. The first one is the land accounts, then the water accounts, the mineral accounts, and the ecosystems account. A selection of the priority sectors or selection of the priority accounts was mainly based on the importance of these accounts to national development, but also to the possibility of getting good quality data, the possibility of getting good quality data. And then after the prioritization, as I mentioned before, we embarked on the process of collaboration with the World Bank and other stakeholders. We had some slides skipped. For us to join the natural capital accounting process, we had 3 main objectives as a country. The first objective is because Rwanda is a very, very dependent country in terms of natural capital and ecosystem services. We see that in Rwanda, following the previous census in 2022, the population density of Rwanda is very high, around more than 500 people per square kilometer. And this will be doubling in the next 20, 30 years to around 900 to 1,000 people per square kilometer. Rwanda is a very dependent country in terms of agriculture. The economy is mainly dominated by agriculture, and the topography is also complicated. Rwanda is a country of 1,000 hills. Most of the country is dominated by very steep slopes. We are seeing increasing demand in water resources and energy resources, both for household consumption, but also for industrial development and overall economic development. We also committed to natural capital accounts production because of the need to understand the potential in terms of natural capital that we have, especially with minerals and tourism and so on and so forth. And importantly also, we realize that we need to develop in a sustainable manner. And for us to be able to do that, we need good information to guide policymakers in terms of decisions. In the medium term, the technical priorities in terms of focus, we are looking forward to producing asset accounts for individual environmental assets in physical and monetary terms, where we show the stock of assets that we have between time periods of concerns, and showing the changes that are taking place. We also aim technically to produce supply and use tables in physical and monetary terms, showing flows of natural inputs, products, and residues. We also intend to produce functional accounts according to transactions and other information about economic activities undertaken for environmental purposes. And down the road, we ultimately want to achieve the production of economic accounts that highlight depletion adjusted economic aggregates. We hope to achieve this in the next couple of years, about 2 to 3 years. I talked about the process, but importantly, over the last close to 10 years, there are a number of achievements that we've already achieved. For example, we already published the land accounts in 2018. As I said, we selected 4 priority accounts. The first one is the land accounts, the water accounts, minerals accounts, and the ecosystem accounts. And in terms of land accounts, we published that in 2018. The results were very impressive. Of course, we had invested in more than almost close to 4 years of investment. But here again, the reason we focused on this is due to the high relevance of land in Rwanda because of very high population density and important aspects of agricultural production, food security, and so on and so forth, and understanding the competition of other activities vis-a-vis land, agriculture vis-a-vis habitat, agriculture vis-a-vis industrial production, agriculture, habitat vis-a-vis conservation efforts. So we prioritized the land account to allow us to understand the trade-offs that we need to do in managing our land resources. The water resources accounts, we published the water resources accounts in 2019. And here also, as I had said earlier, water resources, the assessment was that in Rwanda, we are at risk of pressures in terms of demand for water resources, given population growth and economic development. Minerals account, the main reason why we embarked on the mineral accounts is because minerals in Rwanda, in addition to the potential, but they also contribute a lot in terms of foreign trade resources that allow us to get for forexes for countries' economic development. And of course, the ecosystems accounts that we published in 2019 that are also very important contributor in understanding the changes in ecosystem services that we have in the country that most of our population rely on, given that the majority of the population in Rwanda relies heavily on natural resources. Much as we've had some achievements, we still have some work to do. And going forward, we want to approach our work going forward in three phases. The first phase is we want to comprehensively strengthen the availability of data across the board in the environment sector. And this will give us a very strong foundation for our natural capital accounts and compilation of the system of environmental economic accounting. We want to start from a strong foundation going forward, building our natural capital accounts. We then want to institutionalize natural capital accounts across all institutions that have a stake in producing these statistics. We invest in building capabilities in these institutions so that we can start compiling environment statistics and natural capital accounts in a sustainable manner and integrating them in our national accounts and in a systematic and sustainable manner. So that's our experience. In terms of what we've been doing in the last 10 years. And we are still committed in terms of continuing to build natural capital accounts and integrating them into the systems of national accounts. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Yusuf. I think from Rwanda experience now, we move to the Ethiopian experience to share on investment prioritization tool to support the land management program in the country. So I give a floor for Afork and then followed by Dr. Shwagana. Thank you.
Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Afork from Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm going to present you using the investment prioritization tools and NDCA for designing a landscape program in Ethiopia. And the presentation outline will be the first country context and the state of the land degradation and brief on Ethiopian sustainable investment framework for SLM and evolution of the World Bank landscape support program, NDCA initiative architecture and objective, investment prioritization tools and NDCA development and use cases, challenges and lessons. Finally, next step or way forward will be presented. Actually, I will going to present up to evolution of the World Bank landscape support program. The rest will be managed by the, Dr. Shwagana from the World Bank group. And as you know, Ethiopia's economy mainly depend on agriculture that have been experiencing high growth rates, which was more than 10%. And however, policy distortion compounded by the internal and external shock reduces its GDP growth to about 6%. And despite for the last 10 years or more than a decade, the country shows declining of the poverty, but now still stood at 24% in 2020. The government has laid out an ambitious policy agenda to transform the country into diversified and resilient middle income economy by 2030. To do that, the 10-year development plan defines an annual GDP growth by 10% by 2030. And as you know, Ethiopia heavily rely on renewable natural resources, which can't be replaced by produced and human capitals. And according to the World Bank study, experienced an absolute drop in the value of renewable natural capital, 11%, which happened between 2050 to 2080. And the climate shock and the demographic leading to degradation and increasing vulnerability. And the state of land degradations, according to the climate, the countries, the Ethiopians climate and development reports, the land degradation affects millions and reduces resilience to climate changes. The cost of the land degradations in the country is estimated to 2 to 6.75% of the GDP that come from the agriculture, and the LD, which is the land degradations, affects 1 in 5 persons of the total populations, and the study projected to experience changes in vegetation conditions through 2030 under the constraints growth scenario. As shown in the map, depicted that it also goes the degradation into lowland beside the highlands. As you know, in the highlands is agriculture intensive, but now also the degradation or the vegetation conditions goes to the lowland. And in response to this, the government develops the strategy, which is Ethiopian Strategic Investment Framework for SLM. The purpose was for providing a programmatic and strategic planning framework to guide the prioritizing, planning, and implementing SLM investments in the country. And it was during 2010 up to 2023, and the cost was incurred about 6 billion and covered more than 30,700 micro or community watershed with 6.9 million hectares. Now, the updated one, which is the second version of the ESIF, the framework, will will work for 20 up to from this period 2024 up to 2038, and will continue the programmatic approach for 50 years, and will have 6 components, and will also include 60,000 community or micro watersheds with the landscape approach, and will cover 25 up to 13 million hectares, and the estimated cost will be 27 billion is required, out of which 68% for scaling up SLM, and for the coming 5 years, it requires 8.24 billion is required for sustaining or upscaling SLM and utilizing this framework. The rest will be managed by Dr. Shwakanna. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Afork. Thanks so much, Dr. Dawit, for the opportunity. Yeah, I will try to present what the World Bank has been supporting the country landscape program. So since 2008, almost the past 15, 16 years, the World Bank has been supporting the landscape program of the country under the Sustainable Land Management flagship program of the government of Ethiopia. And almost this is one of the largest landscape program in the bank as well. And over the past 15 years, close to 900 million USD has been invested, which covers 9,200 community watersheds. A community watershed has on average 500 hectares. And also through this operation, we have covered close to 4 million hectares. And one of the aspects of this program is the integration of land tenure issue into the broader sustainable land management program, because the underlying cause of land degradation and deforestation of forests is insecure tenure right. So through this operation, not only restoring the land, but also to incentivize the farmers and landholders, we have been trying to support the government to register the land use rights of farmers, and issued close to 11 million titles over the last period. And as you can see in the map, we have started like by 350 community watershed in 2008. Now we are covering like 9,000 plus community watersheds. This is really how it shows how the World Bank support is evolving in response to the country policy with regard to landscape restoration program. So our approach is that while we are working on the analytics, we are also translating those findings into programs through investment project as well as program for results. So in the highland, you can see how this evolution is just evolved, and the footprint that covers much of the highlanders. So another story of this program is that, you know, it's not only certifying the landholders, but the landholders are now using the land certificates to borrow money from financial institutions, including microfinances and bankers. And through this operation, over the past 2 years, farmers received close to 85 million USD, which helps them just to invest in landscape restoration activities on their farm. The other aspect is, while I'm trying to explain these figures from my mind, you know, there is really a lack of rigorous evidence that shows the countrywide impact of these programs, not only from the World Bank side, but also other development partners supporting the landscape programs. We don't have really a rigorous evidence that can inform the policy and prioritize the investment needed to restore degraded lands. For this, we initiated the natural capital accounting through our green and resilient development programmatic advisory services. This initiative aims to support a performance-based financing for landscape restoration in the country. So what you are trying to do through the NSA is that by focusing on generating the relevant data, we do analytics and support the policy reforms and investment prioritization, as well as capacity building of sectors. Just to highlight some of the use cases, you know, through the NSA, we have started the development of satellite accounts, including land account, ecosystem extent, and ecosystem account. So the map that you are showing is that we just, by doing the land account, we just try to classify the land use types, 18 land use type classified, agreed nationally, and we also agreed to do the analysis in 2 periods for 2030 and 2020, and to know the land use change over time in these 2 periods. And the result is interesting, shows that, you know, there are gains and loss of ecosystems in the different ecosystem, such as grasslands, forests, and these indices shows the national level changes, and while this is the first step, we still expect from this work just to undertake and a little deep dive and unlock the national level aggregation into regional state, and we will look into how the losses and gains are happening at regional level, and the reason behind for those changes. And by doing that, we try to inform the landscape programming in terms of prioritization of investment areas. The other use case is the investment prioritization tool, which uses spatially explicit information by bringing both socioeconomic and biophysical data, and presenting, analyzing in an indicator. As you can see, there are indicators identified in the Ethiopian strategic investment framework, which we call it ESIF. Then those indicators were not weighted, and it was very difficult to quantify and support the decision-making processes. So to help us understand the quantification of these indicators, we just agreed at national level 5 core indicators with 27 indicators, and these indicators weighted at national level and use the analysis through the database that we have developed to analyze the extent of land degradation, also the climate change, including flood, droughts, and heat stress in the country, and also the biodiversity conditions. So with this, we just developed the investment prioritization, version 1 already produced, and the capacity building training also provided on this. And the third one is the IPT policy applications. While we are developing the tool is one thing, the policy application of this tool is very, very important. So the cases that we are now I'm presenting is how we are applying this tool in terms of informing policy as well as programming landscape operations. So the first one is, you know, the government of Ethiopia, what Afwerki presented. The second phase of ESIF is preparing for the next 15 years. So to do the analysis based on those 27 indicators and 5 core indicators, we quantify and analyze the data and come up with the map showing where are the investment areas of next generation to program our landscape operations in the country. Secondly, the designing of program. We know we have this climate action through landscape program, which is a 500 million program since 2000, up and run since 2019. Now, since the project is really doing well, the government is asking to add more community watersheds into the program. And 1,200 community watersheds are agreed, but where will be this 1,200 community watersheds found in the country will be identified by using the IPT tool. So this is another use case of this IPT tool. And the third one is, while we are investing in the landscape, we are generating different ecosystem services, including reduction of emission of greenhouse, and also the different regulation and provision services. So for that, we are developing PAS scheme, and through this operation, we are supporting the country to develop the first payment for ecosystem service proclamation. This is a work under progress, and as you know, just a year ago, the World Bank has signed the first carbon credit program, emission reduction program in Ethiopia, and this proclamation, once approved by the country, will help us how the beneficiary mechanism will operate to support the communities who are stewarding the landscape. So these are some of the use cases. So overall, what you have learned through this process is that, doing this type of exercise is not uneasy, because lack of data and even the mechanism, lack of the mechanism to share data between institutions is one of the challenges that we have been facing, because institutions have their own silo approach. So to bring them together to work and produce some meaningful data using this IPT tool was really a challenging exercise. And the lesson is, client ownership is very, very important. The country and leading institutions has to be assigned, and once those institutions are assigned, I think they should have to drive the process. And also coordination among different institutions is one of the aspects of our exercise that we have learned through this operation. Finally, what's next is just we will roll out the revised IPT tool and supporting materials and conducting hands-on IPT training for the champions and experts within the different ministries. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I think two presenters will take 10 minutes. I don't know how, but I apologize for the long presentation. Yeah, the last presentation by Dr. Somia on the forest and ecosystem service related aspect. The floor is to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share a little bit about some of the analytics that we've been working on in Nepal, and this is work that's being done in close collaboration with the National Statistics Office. The work is being led by Mr. Tirtha Chalahan. Tirtha, sir, if you could just stand up, thank you. So big round of applause to Tirtha, sir. This work was undertaken specifically at the request of MOFE. Okay, something happened. Okay. And the genesis of this work is that MOFE came to us wanting to know what is the contribution of forests to the economy of Nepal, because it's such a big natural resource. And so we were guided in that question, and then we were guided by the availability or the lack of availability of data and the use of the approaches that we put into place in order to be able to answer this question. I want to add that these analytics have already been used to inform policy and processes in Nepal, including World Bank funded programs, as well as the next wave of investments that are in the progress of being designed. And so let me sort of give you a sense of what we found out here. So this is a story of good news. Unlike the rest of the world, Nepal is one of those countries where forest cover has steadily increased over time, while poverty levels have fallen. There aren't very many cases where one gets to say those two things, and feel happy about both. But Nepal is certainly one of those. So there's been an impressive increase in forest cover. It's about 45% of the country's area now. And there has been independent work done outside the bank that very clearly shows that forest cover has increased, poverty has reduced, and there are two big factors that are known to be somewhat responsible for this. One is, I can't see anything on the screen here. So one is community forestry. So community forestry is the principle by which public forests are managed by communities. And this has been in place for the past 25, 30 years and has certainly contributed to increases in forest cover. The second thing is migration. Nepal has a very large rates of outmigration, particularly of males. And these remittances from abroad have helped to create environmental assets in the form of private trees on agricultural land. It has also reduced dependency on public forests. So this is one of those interesting cases where households across the spectrum are actually contributing to the creation of environmental assets by afforesting their land autonomously. And so this has been observed over the years, anecdotally, by government of Nepal. And so we were tasked with trying to quantify some of this, to understand what does dependency on public forest resources look like at the moment, but what is this action that is also taking place on private land? And how can we better support it, given that there are these positive stories to tell? So one of the ways that we could have, there are different ways in which one can go about doing this. We chose to do this because of a number of things that were happening at the same time, to get the data that we needed to answer this question through the Living Standards Survey that was being implemented by the government of Nepal under the leadership of Mr. Cholahen at that time. And this is a unique opportunity to pair environmental data with poverty data. It's not done very often, in part because there are technical complexities of doing it. There are different jurisdictions. Typically environmental data gets collected by MOFE, poverty data is usually collected by a statistics organization. Sampling strategies for these tend to be different. Bringing those two different data sets together is often problematic. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes coordination that we've been talking about. But if it's done, it can be very informative for guiding investments, policy, and dialogue, especially related to diversity and inclusion, and how we can continue to support these investments in a way that the benefits are shared equitably. The other advantage of doing it through this kind of microdata approach is that if forest products are not traded, as is the case in Nepal, GDP will not capture it. And so we have to think of alternative, supplementary ways to get at this question. And so we implemented a forestry module under the auspices of the Living Standards Survey. So we were able to get data from a nationally representative sample of a little more than 3,000 households. And while the main module is specifically designed to measure poverty through consumption expenditure methods, the forest module was designed in order to collect data on dependency and the change in dependency on forest products from both public forests as well as private trees. And so what we do is we look at the importance of products from these two systems in the welfare of households, and we specifically focus on inclusiveness, both economic inclusiveness and social inclusiveness. And so what we find is that overall, even today, about 37% of households in Nepal access public forests for a range of non-timber forest products. However, 48% of households have privately afforested their agricultural land and have planted trees on them. So these are trees that serve energy needs, they serve livelihood needs, they serve food needs. And about 66% of households in Nepal still continue to access either public or private forests in order to meet their livelihood and income needs. As you can imagine, females disproportionately collect forest products. The most important forest product is usually firewood. But there's a whole range of other forest products that are also collected. Dependency on these products is high. Now, because these products are not publicly traded, it's very hard to sort of go to a market and ask people, what did you pay to do this, to purchase this? What we find is that 45% of households in Nepal still depend on firewood. There's a lot of LPG use, but there is a lot of use of multiple sources of energy in the household. 22% are still collecting grass, and 17% are dependent on litter. This is in order to meet energy needs, but also to feed livestock. And there's a whole range of other forest products that are being collected from public resources. The value of these products is about 17% of the food consumption expenditures per year, per household. So it's not a small value. Private forest products, again, from private trees, 45% of households are collecting firewood from their own trees, 30% are collecting grass from their own land, 27% are collecting litter. So this is a case where agricultural land is not being used to grow crops anymore. It's instead being used for these products. And the value of these products from private trees is also about 18% of the food consumption value per household, so it's not small. We were interested to know who benefits from these systems because we wanted to really get at the diversity, inclusiveness component of the story. So we categorized these households into 4 categories. Those who just don't depend on any types of forest products because they don't need to. Those who only depend on shared resources, which are the public forests. Those who use only their own private resources, and those who do both. So if you look at the first row, the largest share of households who don't access any trees belong to the largest consumption quintile. And the lowest share of households who don't access any products belong to the lowest consumption quintile, which is what we'd expect to see. Richer households, better off households are much less likely to rely on environmental amenities for livelihoods. And that's exactly what we're seeing. If you look at the next row, this is really about how are public resources being shared. Are they equitably being shared across poverty and consumption quintiles? The largest share of households that access public forests, that's 20%, belongs to the lowest consumption quintile. And then as you go up to the largest consumption quintile, only 5% of those households that access public forests are the richest, which is exactly what we'd expect to see. We would hope that public systems disproportionately benefit people who are comparatively worse off. And that's what we're seeing here. When we look at the case of private trees, so these are private assets of households, they're quite equitably distributed among the 4 consumption quintiles and very small when it comes to the highest consumption quintile. And this is, again, not surprising, right? So what this also means is the creation of these assets. Households across Nepal are creating environmental assets. Richer households and poorer households are doing it. That's kind of what's happening out here. And then those who access both, the greatest share come from the lowest consumption quintile, the highest share from the lowest quintile. This is exactly what we'd expect to see if we were hoping for a story of diversity and inclusion by poverty status in households. And that's sort of what we see, and that's the summary of some of the big findings here. We were also interested to understand to what extent forests are safety nets for the poorest. And we actually, what we find is that among those who say that they increase their dependence on forests, in times of stress. So it's very common for poor households, particularly, to increase their dependency on environmental resources if there's some economic shock in their household. So those who say, yes, I did increase my dependency during economic shocks in the last sort of 5 years, when my household went through a stressful time. The larger shares come from the lower consumption quintiles. The smallest shares come from the highest consumption quintiles. Those who say that, this is not applicable to me, in part, and the reason they say not applicable is because they just don't depend on forest products at all. The largest shares are from the richest household, the lowest shares from the poorer households. So what we're seeing out here is, again, this larger story of equity and inclusion in access to forest products. Similarly, those who say, I decreased my importance on natural resources. I don't need it so much. I'm better off now. It's very heartening to know that the largest share of people who said that also came from the poorest categories, which is great. And so the policy implications of this stuff, of these results are that forests continue to be especially important, especially to meet the energy needs of people. And these have very high value to households, despite the fact that you don't go and purchase them from a market because you collect them on your own. Public forest products, which are shared resources, actually show progressiveness in access by economic status. We also repeated this analysis by looking at whether people were indigenous or not and whether people were Dalit or not, and we find exactly similar stories of inclusiveness and progressiveness in the sharing of spared public resources. And this is an important thing because in the larger, since forest stocks and just the area under forests has increased in Nepal, one of the questions is really around how do you make this a more market-oriented sort of space. And the challenge here is that community forestry, of course, has developed to prioritize the needs of local communities so that, and to sell surplus only if it's available. Trying to shift that system around might risk the health of these forests. And so it's really important to continue to support public forests, these shared spaces, for the management of these to be supported through community forestry measures so that they continue to cater to the needs of the poorest, but they could also be managed for environmental amenities since the area of these forests has increased and their forest conditions have also improved. So this is an opportunity to manage shared resources for the poorest as well as for environmental amenities. However, there's a lot of potential to develop market-oriented action on private forests, because this is an emerging asset class. And all houses across consumption quintiles seem to have this. So this is a great opportunity to invest in this land. But doing so will require a bunch of things to happen. It will require coordination between ministries of agriculture and ministries of forestry. It will require identifying better tree species, ecologically appropriate tree species that can meet livelihood needs of the households. It will require mixing products that men want because they can sell it and get cash versus products that women want because that just makes them walk less to the public forest and get those same resources. So it's about balancing these different needs as well as thinking about a bunch of policy changes that need to happen in order to support this. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we are on the mark of 1 hour since our opening of this session. We left 30 minutes for the discussion. So to break the silence from my side as a discussion point, maybe this point is for Professor Yusuf. Recently, an issue of big data is emerging in the global context. So what is your reflection on how NSA contribute and its use and relevance in relation to big data? Because using this big data will ease, because most of the presentation related to NSA raised about data sharing challenge, coordination challenge. So is there any way to use the big data in this NSA?
Thank you very much. Actually, I think big data is going to be a very big game changer in this area. One of the reasons we've struggled in the past to have good statistics and good data is because of the complications of collecting the data, the complications of sharing the data, and the complications of analytics of the data. And now with big data, especially increasing access to geospatial tools, satellite images and so on and so forth, but not only that, we're also seeing a lot of possibilities now to even collect like air quality information in an easier way, using big data, using also information on transactions, other forms of big data that allow us to analyze transactions. So actually we are counting on big data a lot to try to put in place a mechanism to get a lot of statistics and data in a sustainable manner across the whole environmental statistics landscape that leads to natural capital data. So big data will be very useful going forward. It's very promising.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, next to the Ethiopian presenters related to the large portfolio that is the bank is supported the landscape management program, and recently also with this NCA initiative, the investment prioritization tool will support some of the decision-making process for more sustainable land and biodiversity management. So how can we treat the issue of spatial and institutional scale? Dr. Shawa, when you mentioned there is regional issues, which is an institutional aspect, to select the additional community watershed. And also management is also affected by ecological scale. So how can we balance the issue of the ecological and the institutional scale in using this tool for making sustainable intervention in the sustainable land management program in the country? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dr. Diet. Yes, I think one of the challenge in operations in landscape programs is, identifying the priority area for sustainable land management investment. And for that, different institutions have a stake starting from grassroots, from the community up to the federal institution. And as you know, at federal level, the Ministry of Agriculture is leading the watershed development operation at community level. Also, a policy and strategic guidance and standards, as these are activities led by the Ministry of Agriculture. But the decision-making process is one of the challenges, because regions, they have their own interest, and also decision makers at the same time, they have their own constituency interest. And given that we have a limited resources, the decision-making process is not evidence-based, so that the investment made on the ground is not really in a way that is meaningful. And so just to fill this gap, this investment prioritization tool is really a fundamental breakthrough just to facilitate the decision-making process by bringing spatially explicit information, so that the decision made at policy level as well as at operational level can be informed by the data and information generated through this IPT or investment prioritization tool. So in the future, together with the government of Ethiopia, we are trying to identify investment areas by analyzing, we have in the country more than 230,000 community watersheds. So those community watersheds are at different state of degradation, and the requirement of investment is a lot. So given that we have a limited resources, we need to prioritize which area will be the first generation of investment, so that we can generate better ecosystem services from the investment that we are making. So the IPT is really a fundamental tool just to facilitate the decision-making process at different levels. Thank you.
Anything to add, Afwork, on this 1 minute? Yeah.
Thank you. As Dr. Shua mentioned, the ministry is trying to utilize fully the IPT for identifying the incoming, investments to incorporate for the investment, for the incoming landscape programs. So the IPT is, so some updating is required, but still we are utilizing these prioritizing tools since the framework has a selection criteria, but subject to subjection, it's not objective. So it helps us to identify the targeted micro watershed or community watershed objectively, considering the available informations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Sumaya, I think in your presentation, I just noticed that the forest has some untapped potential, whether it is in private or public. But the issue is, how can we balance the maintenance of the biodiversity and the species and the forest ecosystem service with the poverty reduction? You saw when I saw the arrows moving here and there, this question comes to my mind: how can we balance the issue of maintaining biodiversity in relation to the poverty elevation issues? Yeah.
I think the key is in distinguishing between public forests and private spaces. And that distinction is going to be very critical in order to get at these multiple goals. So because poverty has fallen drastically in Nepal, and a lot of private and households, agricultural households particularly, who have agricultural land, are anyway planting trees on their own. This is an excellent opportunity for us to support that tree planting on private spaces so that it can meet household needs. That basically reduces pressure on public forests because people don't have to go to the public forest for firewood. You have your own firewood on your own trees in your own land. And then shared spaces can be better managed for biodiversity. They can be better managed for environmental amenities. It just creates space. So the key will be to distinguish between these two systems and to have different strategies to support both these systems. Because it's very hard managing one system for multiple goals. It just so happens here that because of a number of things that we may have contributed to, but because of a whole bunch of other things that have just happened in Nepal, there's a good opportunity here to actually be able to meet these multiple objectives without there having to be very strong trade-offs between them. But the key will be to distinguish between these two systems in the Nepal context.
Thank you. I think I have a mandate to manage our time. So I will give, if you have any burning issue, one for each presenter. One there. Any other? Two here. And use this opportunity. The one is left. Yeah, it's only two. Yeah, please.
Yes. Thank you for these wonderful presentations. I have the same question to the presenters from Ethiopia and Rwanda. And it is about ecosystem condition accounts. I understand from your presentations that the accounts that you have developed are mainly ecosystem extent accounts. So my question is, do you have to do you have plans to also develop condition accounts? What do you see as the main challenge if you have such plans? Thank you.
Thanks. Here. Yeah, behind the cameraman. Yeah.
Thank you so much, moderator. Sam Mugume, my name, from Uganda. It's my first time to speak. Great presentations, but the experience from Rapal, which is great, really indeed. It wasn't clear for me what is causing the other. Is it increase in vegetation cover, reducing poverty, or reduction in poverty, increasing forest cover? And what is linked? What is the cause? How is the whatever is causing the other one to drop or the other one to increase? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the balance for the three people is ending, and so following the way of presentation, Prof, and followed by Dr. Shaw and Dr. Sumaya.
Yeah, thank you. The question about ecosystems conditions account, I think this is very important. I think it should be the next level. After you have the extent, you've done everything, but at some point you want to know the conditions of the ecosystems on a regular basis. For now, the challenge is data, but as I said, moving forward, as we get more access to satellite data capabilities for most ecosystems, we get knowledge on how to analyze this data, we get time to give it priority. I think it will be very useful and possible to go to this next level. So at the moment, we have not yet gone into that, but it should be done sooner than later. Thank you.
Yes, I think it looks Professor reads my mind. It's almost the same answer that I have. You know, in my presentation, we have selected 3 satellite accounts. The first one is land, the second one is the ecosystem extent, and the third one is the condition. Then, now we are working on the land account. We are about to finalize. I have presented the initial result, but still that's work in progress. And then we are also trying to do the extent, the ecosystem extent and also the condition. So it's a matter of time. But in our plan, we have to develop these accounts. And the challenge, with regards to the challenge, is the data, as Professor already presented. So, but still, the data that we have generated through the land account is really very important and a foundation for the ecosystem extent as well as the condition accounts. But still, more data has to be explored, and down the road, hopefully, we will develop these accounts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Sumaya, about the forest question?
It's an excellent question. So it is a bit of an endogenous process, you're absolutely right. But thinking about the timeline somewhat helps here. So about 40 years ago or so, deforestation was extremely high in Nepal, and the government made a decision at that point, historically, to revert to a system of community forestry management. So hand forest lands to communities who have an incentive to increase forest stock so that they can also use it to meet their livelihood needs. And in a sense, it's been extremely successful, because as the years went by, as communities started forming these forest groups, they first closed access to forests to allow biomass to increase, and then opened it up, having pretty strict rules for what can be taken, what season it can be taken, what it can be taken for, etc. There's work that shows that that system of management certainly helped with reducing poverty for the poorest among forest-dependent communities. So that's the caveat there. At the same time, migration, sort of the mail-out migration story particularly started. And it is a country where there are lots of remittances coming from abroad even now. And as those remittances have come back to people who are in the country, their well-being has increased. Their dependency on forests has fallen because they can afford to perhaps purchase some of the things that they were collecting. Because there's less labor in the house, it makes sense for them to plant a perennial and not an annual, because it's such a labor-intensive activity to cultivate wheat and then harvest it, and cultivate rice and harvest it, and you don't have labor in the house. Wage rates have gone up, so it's expensive to hire people as well. And then because there is this private afforestation, which is anyway happening, this private tree planting, it means these households now don't need to go to the public resource anymore. So that actually helps the poorest even more, because the poorest don't have their own land. So the poorest are more likely to rely on the shared resource. So it's a bunch of things that serendipitously have kind of fed into one another to create these positive stories. That's kind of what's going on there.
Yeah, thank you. As a technical team member, the one raised about the ecosystem extent and ecosystem service account from the Ethiopia side, I'm a member of as a coordinator. It is learning by doing, and most of the task is done by our technical experts from the government side. And in the morning, Christine was mentioning about the power of collaboration and coordination issue. It takes some time, but now we have a stepping stone to have a very strong technical working group. And then once we develop the land account, that will underpin the development of other accounts. And even there is a request from the government side to have water account, energy account, forest account. So for that, as it was mentioned in the morning, we should have some roadmap for that, either in a short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategy. But for the ecosystem extent and ecosystem service account, finalizing of the land account will support the process to move easily. The wheels will run once we have that kind of technical capacity and institutional strength in the government office. So I think we are on time even we save time for Peter to enjoy. So now we are 1 minute, please. Let's use that time to appreciate and thank our lovable presenters here representing 3 countries. A round of applause, and thank you very much. Peter, Philip, the floor is to you. Yeah.
Okay. So you know the drill, yeah? You know the drill, eh? We have online participants, and normally they ask questions. So let me see what we have from here. I would like to ask Rwanda to share its experience in financing data collection and compiling environmental accounts. So that question to Rwanda. So Professor Yusuf, I think you take that question. Yeah, okay, good.
I would say there are 2 parts to that question. The first part is financing data collection, and specifically for this kind of work, environmental statistics, natural capital accounting, and so on and so forth. First of all, our experience in financing data collection has been improving and good over the previous years. There has to be strong government commitment. So the starting point will not be the World Bank. The starting point will not be any development partner. The starting point will be the government. So the government has to, first of all, agree to invest in data collection. Then you come to specifically natural capital accounting and so on and so forth. Because resources are scarce, to be honest, we didn't start by prioritizing this sector. So in the last 10, 15 years, we've been systematically increasing our investments in statistics and data collection in other sectors. But now, we are now zeroing in down to this sector as well. So the environment sector, natural capital accounting and everything now is also on the high priority. And of course, now we're already allocating resources to this. Much as I said, government is important, but also development partners is very important that among the things that they do, development partners also have to invest in statistics activities and data collection. And we're also benefiting from that in Rwanda, from the World Bank, from the European Union, from many other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Yusuf. Okay, so could we give another final round of applause to our panelists? And also to our moderator, Dawit. Okay, thanks. So we are at that point where I think we need a break. I can see the lunch was very heavy, so it's now eating on us rather than us eating from it. So we're going to have a break, 30 minutes break between now and come back at 15:30. But it's actually half work during the break because we have an amazing team that have put together posters, and all the posters are lined up there. So I'd like to encourage all of us, as you take your refreshment, do a gallery walk, talk to some of the colleagues that are presenting posters. When we come back at 15:30, we're actually going to have quick fire poster presentation from Rwanda, Kenya, Bolivia, Zambia, and Uganda. So please engage the colleagues, even from outside, before they come to present, so that we make full use of this opportunity. So we have break. Okay? Great, thank you. So see you here exactly at 15:30.